Howdy folks, there's something that we need to discuss. There's a bill that would take away funding from the Paycheck Protection Program. So what exactly does this mean for small businesses? Are there going to be more PPP loans? Is there actually funding left that we don't know about? Will people be able to bump up their PPP loans from net income to gross income with the retroactive Paycheck Protection loans? Is there anything that we can do? That is exactly what we're going to discuss in this video. So I recently saw JJ the CPA's video on this topic, where he talks about how there's this Senate bill for more PPP funds. And this prompted me to do a bit of digging. And his channel, if you're not familiar, is great, especially if you're curious with the ERTC program and its infinite complexity. He's got some great stuff on that. So in this video, he brings up a few sections of the recent Senate bill that would pull money from the Paycheck Protection Program. And this is something that I hadn't heard of before. And I did some searching online and I didn't really see much on it. So I did some digging myself, read through the sections myself, reached out to some people that I know who are much more in the know than I am. And I think I found some answers. Here. So the bill that's in reference is a bill that you're probably familiar with because it is the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. This bill is the massive spending bill that provides funding to roads, bridges, waterways, a whole lot more. In fact, I've already done a video on this bill that I break down in some nice, pretty to look at graphs on where exactly the spending is allocated. I'll pin the video on that above if you're at all curious. It's actually a great video if you haven't seen it yet. But part of the funding for this bill comes in the form of taking away funding from small business relief programs. And this, of course, has been a huge issue. Many people, myself included, have said this is ridiculous. Why pull money from a successful program for struggling small businesses and fund these projects? You know, yeah, we don't want to say like one project is better than another, but you know, at least let the programs run their course. Let everyone get funded and then, pull funding or however you want to do that. But the funding is there for small businesses. So you would hope that it got spent on small businesses. But either way, most notably though, this program pulled funding from the EIDL loan program and the EIDL grant program. So about $13.5 billion will be pulled as long as it's passed from the EIDL small business loan program and about $17.5 billion pulled from the EIDL grants. So that's enough to pull funding in the EIDL grant program to pay 1.7 million businesses $10,000 grants. So that's a huge amount of money. Now the funding that will still be left, if this passes, it has not passed yet, will still be enough to fund all of the grants who have already applied. But the hope was with the additional funding here, they'd be able to open it up to new businesses, take away some of the criteria that have received a lot of heat, these criteria, because they're so limiting. The hope was they would lower some of the criteria, allow more businesses in, more businesses would get these grants that already had funding allocated. Well, if this bill gets passed, a solid chunk of that funding will be pulled and the likelihood of it being opened up drastically decrease. So when looking at this bill, I didn't really think much about the Paycheck Protection Program because the funding for that program had already been allocated. The program was already done months before this bill ever came out. But like I mentioned, I was prompted to look further into this program and I dove into the bill here. So here we are on section 90,007, 90007. This bill is crazy long. It's like 5,000 pages long. And this is where they talk about pulling money from small business programs. So first we have the EIDL program and we scroll down a little bit and we have the sections on the Paycheck Protection Program. So it says here, of the unobligated balances from amounts made available under the heading Small Business Administration, Business Loan Programs, and this is for the Paycheck Protection Program, which you see right here, $4.6 billion permanently rescinded if this passes. $4.6 billion. Now you'd think if they're able to pull $4.6 billion, there must be $4.6 billion sitting there. And then we have of the unobligated balances here, $992 million permanently rescinded, again from the Paycheck Protection Program. We scroll down a little bit more. An additional $175 billion permanently rescinded, again from the Paycheck Protection Program. So this makes you scratch your head. How is it that this program has about $6 billion in funding to be rescinded yet the program ran out of money. So my first thing to check was the COVID money tracker. Now this is a great tool if you haven't checked it out before. So if we go on here to the legislative actions, and then under loan and grant programs, we have the Paycheck Protection Program. And this breaks down each tranche of funding and the total amount of funding. And on here, you can see that $835 billion was allowed and $835 billion was spent. So taking a look at this, you would think all is allocated, right? You would think so. But yet, almost $6 billion here. So I reached out to some people who, like I mentioned, are more in the know than I am, and I received two possible reasons for this. And the first one, it could potentially simply be a case of them being overly strict about loan policies and marking down additional amounts in case of more funding if loans get returned, just to make sure everything is covered, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. And this is fairly common with lending programs, is what I've heard. I am not an expert in the back end for lending programs. This is one possible explanation. It seems kind of crazy to me, but it's a possible explanation. And then second, there actually is funding left in this program, which could very be. I mean, there's got to be at least some funding, but $6 billion of funding, or nearly $6 billion of funding, seems outrageous. So this could have happened in a few ways. First off, accounting was off. I mean, we are dealing with hundreds of billions, almost $1 trillion in funding. So $6 billion comparatively is pretty small. That's less than 1%. So accounting could have been off, estimates could have been off, there could have been an issue there to the tune of almost $6 billion. Second, funds were returned to the SBA. Now I know that many lenders actually ran into an issue towards the end of the program when the window was running shy, that about 1% of promissory notes were not signed. They would approve a loan, everything was approved, they'd send it off, and the note just did not get signed. It seems ridiculous that someone would have that in their email inbox, but for whatever reason they didn't see it, they didn't sign it. Who knows what happened, but 1% for whatever reason didn't get signed. So there was some additional funding left there, but the hope was that that funding would then just be allocated for someone else. But if that takes a while, that could have been sitting in there until June, July, and maybe it just did not get allocated. Again, a bit ridiculous. A third possible reason for the funding left over here could be that the funds weren't sent out on time and they were withheld because of that. So for whatever reason, the funds should have been out. How it's supposed to work is as soon as someone was approved, those funds were allocated, they were held for that person until the funds were dispersed. It doesn't seem like that has worked perfectly. There could have been a rounding error here of 0.5%, 0.25%, which could lead in hundreds of millions of dollars in error. Now, of course, we don't know for certain on any of these. This is just what I've heard, opinions on how this could have happened. The fourth problem, which in my opinion would be the most frustrating, could be an issue with the SBA's accounting. So apparently there was an issue, I don't know for certain, apparently there was an issue that many lenders had approved loans that needed to be returned to the SBA for one reason or another. Very likely fraud, because in the final months of the loan program, the Paycheck Protection Program, many fraudulent loans were being returned and then they need to be sent back to the SBA. And apparently what happened is the SBA refused to accept a lot of these funds back in bulk. So instead, they had these funds marked as already allocated, even though they're being sent back. That's money that should have gone back to the SBA and then been allocated to a new small business. That's very frustrating. So bottom line here, no matter what happened, if this is accurate, if this bill is accurate, there's about $5.8 billion here. At an average loan size of $42,000, that means 138,000 more businesses could be funded through this program just with what is remaining, if this legislative text is accurate. And then towards the end of this program, the average loan was only $13,000 per loan. So at that average, that would be 446,000 more businesses funded. A solid chunk of all the businesses that are sitting there waiting and never got funded. Now, what can we do? The good news is this bill has not passed yet. The House has not passed it yet. They do have some complaints on it, so there is very likely to be some kind of revisions before it is officially passed. So one thing that you can do is reach out to your local congressperson. You can tell them that Section 90,007 of HR 3684, I'll have this down in the description, the details, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, This bill in that section, 9007, pulls money from the Paycheck Protection Program when the Paycheck Protection Program didn't even have enough to fulfill its goal. At the very least, that funding, if it's there, should be allocated to small businesses. The easiest way to reach out to a representative, in my opinion, is using the Resist bot. All you have to do is text the word RESIST, R-E-S-I-S-T, to 50409. I've done it a few times. You can do it directly from your phone, and you can just send a message to your representative, and it'll bring you up, hey, which representative do you want to send it to? It works very well. I would recommend that. This is really all we can do at this point, is fight. I'm trying to do my part in putting this out there. You can do your part by reaching out to a representative, liking this video so it gets spread to more people, share this video so it gets spread to more people. If there's $5 to $6 billion there, I want it to be allocated to small businesses. I really do. That would be amazing if an additional few 100,000 businesses got funding here. So that's going to do it for today. I would like to thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.